Have you ever had one of those days where doing the hard, important work just feels impossible? Well, it turns out there's a hidden switch in your brain that can unlock a level of motivation so powerful it can make you crave the very challenges you've been avoiding. Okay, let's get into it.
You know this feeling, right? The alarm goes off and all that determination you had last night is just evaporated. You hit snooze once, twice, maybe a third time. The day ahead feels like this huge mountain to climb, not a challenge to conquer. And when you finally get to your desk, that blinking cursor is just mocking you, and you find yourself getting lost in all the easy, trivial stuff instead.
So you end the day feeling kind of disappointed in yourself, knowing you didn't really live up to your potential. So what is going on here? If you've ever felt this total drain on your drive, I really want you to hear this. You're not lazy. And procrastination, that's not the real problem. The issue goes way deeper than that.
That's right. The problem isn't that you lack motivation. It's that you lack a specific kind of motivation. See, it all comes down to the fuel source you're using to power yourself, and, well, most of us are running on the cheap, inefficient stuff.
So let's break it down. There are basically two types of motivational fuel, and one is just worlds better than the other. You've got extrinsic motivation on one side and intrinsic motivation on the other. And just understanding the difference here is the first major step to upgrading your entire operating system.
Now, I love the analogy on this slide. Think of extrinsic fuel, things like money, praise, status. Think of it like fossil fuels. Sure, they give you a quick burst of energy, but they come from the outside and they always run out. Your brain actually gets a bigger dopamine hit from anticipating the reward than from getting it. But intrinsic fuel, that's like fusion energy. It comes from inside you, from things like your own curiosity and sense of purpose. It's totally self-sustaining, it lasts, and it actually compounds over time, making hard work feel easier and easier.
So how do you actually make the switch? How do you upgrade your fuel source? Well, it all starts by focusing on 5 core intrinsic motivators. I actually learned this the hard way back in my early 20s. I was on the path to becoming an academic, and my drive just completely hit a wall. So let's use this framework to break down what was really going on.
Okay, first up is curiosity. And we're not just talking about a casual interest here. This is that deep, can't-get-enough itch to learn everything you possibly can about what you do. It's that feeling of needing to know what's around the next corner, turning your work into a page-turner you just can't put down.
Next, you've got purpose. This is the powerful core belief that what you're doing contributes to a cause you genuinely, deeply care about. It's what turns a job into a mission, and it's what gives you the grit to push through the tough stuff because you're connected to something way bigger than yourself.
Then there's mastery. This is that internal fire to just get better for its own sake. That drive to be better today than you were yesterday. You're not just phoning it in, you're obsessed with honing your craft. Kind of like a great athlete who stays late practicing long after everyone else has gone home.
Number 4 is autotelicity. I know, it's a mouthful of a word from Greek, but it just means finding the activity itself to be the reward. The line between work and play just dissolves. You're like a painter who just loves the act of painting, regardless of whether anyone ever sees the final piece.
And finally, autonomy. This is that powerful feeling of being in the driver's seat of your own life. It's having real control over the what, the how, and the when of your work. When you've got autonomy, your work feels like it's truly yours, not just a list of tasks someone else gave you.
So, back to my story. When I audited myself using these 5, I was confused at first. My curiosity and purpose were through the roof. I loved the topic I was studying. But then, boom, I saw the problem. My mastery was low. I wasn't really learning new skills. My autotelicity was in the gutter. I actually hated the day-to-day tasks like crunching data. And my autonomy? It was 0, a big, fat 0. 3 of my 5 core motivators were completely flatlining. That realization was everything. It's what gave me the clarity to shift into business, where I could actually build a career that maxed out all 5.
Now, why are these 5 motivators so unbelievably powerful? It's because they kickstart this incredible self-reinforcing cycle with that peak performance state we call flow. That feeling where you're so absorbed in what you're doing that time just flies by. We call this the motivation flow flywheel.
And this illustrates the whole process perfectly. When your intrinsic motivation is high, your brain releases all these performance-enhancing chemicals that help you slip into a state of flow. But here's the magic trick. Being in flow is one of the most intrinsically rewarding experiences a human can have. So getting into flow actually compounds your motivation even more, which in turn makes it easier to get back into flow the next time. It's this beautiful upward spiral of peak performance. You see this flywheel spinning in every peak performer throughout history. You see it in Einstein's relentless curiosity, Michael Jordan's absolute obsession with mastery, Van Gogh's pure, simple love for the act of creating. Their intrinsic motivators were locked in, letting this cycle just build and build for decades, pushing their drive higher and higher.
Okay, so this is all great in theory, right? But how do you actually apply this to your own life right now? Let's get into the toolkit. We're going to do a quick diagnostic and give you one killer strategy for each of the 5 motivators.
All right, first up, let's check in on your curiosity and purpose. For curiosity, this slide asks the perfect question. When you learn something new, can you use it and see a real result, like right away? If the answer is no, your curiosity is naturally going to fade. And for purpose, the check is simple. Can you draw a straight, clear line from what you're doing today to a bigger outcome that you really care about?
So how do we boost these? For curiosity, the trick is to create a really tight loop between learning something and getting a result. Actively hunt for ways that new knowledge gives you immediate leverage. For purpose, you gotta make it personal. Take just 5 minutes and write down who is helped by what you're working on. Connecting your work to a real person, not some abstract goal, is what really lights that fire.
Now for autotelicity and mastery. This slide hits you with a fantastic, kind of counterintuitive question for autotelicity. Are you focusing on what you love to do, or are you focusing on what you're uniquely good at? We'll see why that's so important in a sec. And for mastery, the check is straightforward. Are you consistently pushing yourself to take on challenges that are just a little bit beyond your current skill level?
To boost autotelicity, the research is crystal clear. Build your work around your innate strengths. You see, competence is a massive trigger for flow, and the more time you spend in flow, the more you genuinely fall in love with the activity itself. Passion follows mastery. Which, brings us to boosting mastery. You want to look for what scientists call the 4% challenge, a task that's just 4% harder than your current skill set. That is the absolute sweet spot for growth. And finally, there's autonomy. The check is easy. How much of your day do you actually control? To boost it, just start small. Proactively carve out and defend 1 single hour of your day for deep work on a project that you choose. That 1 hour can re-energize your entire week.
So, as you start to tune up these 5 intrinsic motivators, something really profound starts to happen. You don't just get more productive. You actually transform your entire mindset. You become what we call the Zen warrior.
I mean, just look at this comparison. The extrinsically driven person is basically a slave to rewards and metrics. Their journey is a grind, and they live for these little temporary highs. But the intrinsically driven Zen warrior, they're playing a completely different game. They have the intense engagement of a warrior, totally obsessed with the work itself, but they also have the calm detachment of a monk who isn't swayed by praise or criticism. For them, the journey is the reward.
And I just want to leave you with this powerful thought from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow research. He said that when you're intrinsically motivated, the goal becomes the experience itself. You become self-contained and increasingly immune to all the anxieties and disappointments that derail so many people. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What would be possible for you if you weren't just chasing a reward, but were completely captivated by the journey itself?